Hello guys, welcome back to Unique Arts. I'm Costco Picasso. You can also call me Shenanigans, and that's actually what I'm going to be calling this little series, I guess. My brother does this, and I'm stealing this from him. He's over at Liam's Lyceum, is his channel, it's Liam. And his weekly updates he does are Liam's Leapings. I'm not doing weekly updates, but I figured I could try to do more of the Booktube-esque stuff since I'm officially a part of Booktube. I feel like I'm not too booktubey in many regards though. So gonna try to do monthly updates for the books that I've read. And it's just I guess it will vary on how many books I've read. I don't read as much as I would like to. Um Lots of times I don't read for entertainment either, so I'm reading books that are a bit slower. And then to be honest, lately I've been working an overnight job and I've just been purely exhausted, and reading books has put me to sleep. I just haven't read as much since I started this job, and I'm hoping to not have the job for too much longer, but current life circumstances, aren't allowing that at the present. So, regardless, that's disappointing. And this is going to be the update for January 2024. I guess we're starting the year off a bit different. I'm trying to be a bit more active on my channel anyway. And all these books I did not read in January, so for this one I'm gonna be pushing it back a little bit into like December and such. But I mostly just gonna try to keep for future updates. Try to just keep it in for the books that I read that month, or the prior month or whatever. Because now we're into February. It's the second that I'm recording this, and I'll try to get this up within a couple days. But I'm gonna try to go through a couple of these that I read last month that I did not enjoy, and just talk very briefly on them. So I have Beyond the American Pale, which is the Irish in the West, 1845 to 1910. It's kind of got a cover there, so it's a little. There you go. I did not like this book. David Emmons, and he taught at University of Montana. I think he might have passed away now. I'm not sure exactly. Either way, not a good book in my opinion. And this is the problem I have with this book and the next book. I'm not a Marxist. You can be a Marxist if you want to, I guess, but I really hate Marxist criticism. I think mostly it's nonsense, and I didn't buy this book to read Marxist criticism. I wanted to learn about the Irish in the American West, and there's definitely going to be some workers' conflicts, as you may imagine. That's bound to happen. So it's okay. I think it would have been okay if there were some those subjects were talked about, but literally the whole book is just from a Marxist point of view. And I hate that nonsense. So I did not like this book. Very disappointed. I try to buy books that I think will be entertaining, that I'll enjoy, even if it's not, I guess, just for entertainment, more for education. And it's the same with this one, actually. So, Making Our Future. This is a visionary folklore and everyday culture in Appalachia. I actually read this for a review for a society that I'm not going to name because they have not been good to work with. They've been responsive. Every time I send them an email, they're responsive for the most part, not exactly. It's been over a month since I sent them an email and I never got a response, for one thing. But also, I've never gotten any of the editions. They do quarterly publications, and I wrote a review for them. I've been a member for a year and I've never gotten a single edition. And I've emailed 5 times at this point, and they've all been told, okay, this will be corrected, and still have never seen a single edition. I don't know if they're all a bunch of half-wits, but this is a very positive video so far because it's been super frustrating, and I don't think I will be renewing my membership with them. And I don't know when my review is going to be published, or if they're just not going to publish it, or what. They haven't told me anything, so not well ran. If you want to know, I guess, what it is, you can ask in the comments, but I don't want to just blurt it out for everyone. But this is the same thing. This is pretty much a folklore look at West Virginia. And I thought it would be interesting. West Virginia is not my main interest, but I still thought, cool, why not? And it's just literally just a Marxist critique. It's all about labor and stuff like that. And of course, again, there are labor stuff with all the mining history of West Virginia, but it's just way too much. It was a hard read. I only finished it because I had to for the review, but I probably would not have otherwise because it wasn't advertised that way. Again, with the Irish ones in the West, like I think it's going to be more historical, like more just like yeah, more just mostly more just historical, not a Marxist lens. I hate the Marxist lens. I do not want to read it. So, very disappointed with that one as well. And I think she teaches at University of West Virginia, the lady who wrote that, Emily Hillard. Yeah, do not recommend it. Okay, on to more positive stuff, I guess. So I live in Montana, and a really famous Montana author, although he lives in Seattle, so he's a traitor anyway, and I don't really know why people care that much, is Ivan Doig. So This House of Sky is probably his most famous book. He's written a lot of stuff that's like about it's supposed to give you a good idea of small town Montana living, and this is pretty much just a memoir from when he was a young boy living in or near White Sulphur Springs, Montana, in Maher County, I think it was, which named after an Irish statesman, Maher. And it's okay. It wasn't that interesting. Like, it was hyped up a lot by people in Montana, and I didn't really care for it. So, I mean, oh well, I guess. If you're into more boring stuff like that, because I think I've read stuff like this before that I think was very interesting, but his life wasn't particularly interesting. I guess it does give you an idea of like small town rural living, but I already kind of am acquainted with that. I don't think being in Montana made it that different, except maybe the whole aesthetic has lasted a little bit later than lots of places back east because it's just not as crowded or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. If you're interested in stuff like that, I guess it's not a bad read. It's a very easy read. You can see the size of the text right there. But I just Landscapes of a Western Mind is also, I guess, what it says there below the title. It's okay. Again, I think it's kind of like with movies when I get like hyped up, like I hear so many good things about it, and then I watch it, and I'm like, oh, it was okay, like it was average. I feel more disappointed than I probably would have otherwise if I didn't hear just such high praise for it. So that's probably the case with this book. It's probably okay, better than I'm giving it credit, just because I heard like it was awesome, like the quintessential Montana book, and then I'm just like, it was okay. One that I did enjoy though, this is by David Cordingley. I don't know who this is really, but it's Under the Black Flag. So, the romance and the reality of life among the pirates. So, and this is a quick read as well, pretty short. How long are you? About 240 pages. Yeah, so really, really short. I generally am interested in romanticism, the Romantic era and stuff like that, but also revivals and like what we romanticize today. Pirates are heavily romanticized. I think a good example of that is Pirates of the Caribbean. And this book is kind of talking about that, where they were not good people. In fact, they were generally awful people. Like, these were some of the worst people you could have, like, during their time, just like pretty much gangs just on the sea. Cartels or what have you. They're pirates. And piracy is not as big these days. And even the pirates we have today, though, we don't romanticize them. We kind of just make fun of them because they're losers. But for this time, like 17th century pirates, we romanticize pretty heavily. So he kind of talks about that a bit, but talks about the reality of it, and it's interesting. It's interesting. Like it's one of those that's pretty informative, but I also think pretty entertaining because pirate stuff is still pretty entertaining. So maybe that's why we like it. But I don't know. Overall, not a bad book. I would recommend it. I bought this at a Barnes & Noble when I was in California for work. So when I was still doing that work, but yeah, definitely recommend it. I don't know if you guys would prefer that I like rate these out of 5 stars or like 10 out of 10 or something like that. You can probably get a general idea just by what I say and not just necessarily the number I'm giving you. But if you would like me to do that in the future, I guess let me know when I can. Another one I actually bought at the same time in California is this book simply called The Normans, A History of Conquest. This is by Trevor Rowley. I met a guy named, I know a guy that this last name once. He pronounced it Rowley, so I don't know if this guy pronounced it differently though. It was okay. There were some editing errors which I was a little disappointed with, but overall it was informative, which is what I appreciated. It didn't seem super in depth, so in many regards I feel like, it's just an extended Wikipedia article, because it's not very long anyway. It's about 215. But it doesn't just talk about the Normans in Normandy and England, of course. It also talks about them in Sicily and Italy. But it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I was already loosely acquainted with the Normans, but I was like, I'm sure there's definitely more that I could know, and I did learn some stuff from this, and I feel like this is kind of similar to the Under the Black Flag. It's like it's relatively entertaining, but also pretty informative. So not a bad book. I would recommend it, even with the errors. I would probably rate Under the Black Flag a little bit higher than this one because it's a little bit more entertaining, and there's no, errors that should have been corrected. But either way, and I think this one does it even on like Goodreads or something like that. It has like maybe 3 stars or something like that. If I remember correctly, like it didn't have the best of ratings. I guess for similar complaints, but oh well, not bad, worth a read, especially if you're interested in the Normans, if you have English heritage or what have you. Okay, and this one, along the same lines of that romanticism, is Magnificent Rebels. Okay, there we go. So by Andrea Wolf. She's a German lady. I did not enjoy this book either. I've read a lot of books I didn't enjoy lately, which is disappointing. This is romanticism. This is about the Romantics, like pretty much the first Romantics. That little group of people in Jena, in Germany, and Schelling and I think Schlegel and Fichte, like all those good German guys, pretty much. Which I would recommend. I would recommend reading their stuff separately. This, I don't know about this book though. So this book is like a fair enough introduction to their background and to the group itself during their time in Jena. But it's so like, she tries to make it sensational, like talking about how they were kind of like one of the ladies of the group was a radical feminist because she got pregnant out of wedlock and like slept with a French soldier, which was like pretty much treason at the time during like Napoleon's army. It was like she doesn't sound like a radical feminist. She sounds like a freaking idiot. It's like, and this lady's like sitting here worshiping her, and I'm just like this kind of nonsense. So she's the author herself. I don't know. I don't know if I like her at all. At least from the ideas I got her about this book, because she just talks more. Yeah, it's about their scandals and stuff like that. I don't care. I want to hear about their thoughts, and she does talk about their thoughts a little bit. So it's like it's okay. Like I definitely gleaned something from this, but it was kind of because I know how to read and not thanks to the author in many regards. So. And that's the problem. Is like so this should be more digestible than reading all of the works from these other artists. From all the people involved, because it's a lot smaller. It's a lot less to read and a lot easier to read. I mean, some of the philosophies like philosophy of art, Schelling's philosophy of art is pretty difficult. But I don't know. Like it's still. I have a hard time with that stuff. I think it's pretty, she was trying to make it pretty mainstream, where maybe random people might pick it up and stuff like that. But it was talking about pretty serious academic stuff at the same time, and I didn't feel like it was a good mix. So pretty disappointed overall. I actually recorded audio, trying to make a video about this book specifically, and I was just pretty much ranting half the time. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna upload this. I feel like that's half this video anyway has been, is I've bought books that I probably shouldn't have because I've been disappointed. Another one that I have read that I've actually, I guess I listened to on Audible, and I haven't I'm like never done that before. I've always been into physical copies, and I am. And so my thought was, because I like to mark it up and reference it later, possibly. And but if the book's just for entertainment, I'm probably not really marking up anyway. And so I have the first two Stormlight Archive books, Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, but I listened to Oathbringer on Audible. And I think that was really the first book I've ever listened to on Audible, and I enjoyed it. So I guess I'll talk about that one too. It's good. Brandon Sanderson is good, and I mean, so one that I'll talk more about next month's video, because I'm actually not quite finished with it yet, is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm also listening to. Sanderson's good. He's definitely not a bad author, and his world building is definitely interesting. I'm not sure I care enough for his stuff that I'll read anything beyond the Stormlight Archive. Like, I'm sure I'll finish it at some point. Obviously, he's not finished with it. But I haven't read Rhythm of War yet, and it's obviously already out. But I mean, compared to stuff like Tolkien, who I've been listening to, he's just not nearly as good. Like, Tolkien is so good. And I guess it's easy to say that. I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take or anything, but I mean, because Tolkien's kind of the granddaddy of them all, right? In many regards these days. But you feel for the world so much more, I feel, through Tolkien's writing, and the characters too. Just because I think that's partially because the characters are flawed in Tolkien's writing, and they're flawed in Sanderson's, but in Sanderson's they're kind of like absurdly flawed. Like, these people have had tremendous childhood trauma, which, don't get me wrong, there are people that have gone through that in real life too, so it's not like it's completely out of reality. It's just, I'm not sure it's as relatable, and not for me, at least definitely not for me. And I don't even know if it's as relatable to most people either, where it's like everyone has trauma like Gollum, rather than, so like no one feels as like the odd character out as Gollum. Gollum's a great character, but I don't know. It just, I don't feel for it so much. I'm not as invested. I don't care as much. Definitely, it's entertaining, and that's the thing too. Is like, so Lord of the Rings is entertaining, but it's also profound. It feels profound in some regards. It's like he wasn't trying to be profound, but he ended up just being so honest, and it's like such a quintessential item for just the Western mindset that you have to read it, especially as one of the Western tradition. So, and Sanderson is just like, I don't know. Maybe it's too modern for me, and lots of modern stuff is just, I always find lackluster. Even if it's good, it's still not as good as the stuff that came before it. Okay, sorry. You can scold me in the comments if I was too far off base for that. But lastly, and this is one I read, and I actually have a video that should be coming out for this book in particular relatively soon. This is Provocations by Kierkegaard. I've never read any of Kierkegaard's stuff cover to cover. I have a couple copies. Actually, I don't know if I have a copy of Fear and Trembling. I meant to. I don't know if I actually have one. But then Either or I have a copy of. And this is pretty much just excerpts, more spiritual stuff taken from all of his different writings. Because he was a Lutheran pastor himself, and lots of times he wrote stuff under pseudonyms because he didn't want to get too much flack, but he was heavily Christian, kind of considered the father of existentialism. If you're interested in existentialism, I would say this is worth a read. If you're a Christian, this stuff is probably worth a read too in many regards. Lots of it wasn't super profound. I was already acquainted with a lot of it as a Christian myself, but it was still good. I still really enjoy it. It's kind of a good mix of spirituality, like, because I think that Christian stuff could be related to spirituality stuff too, if you're kind of into that, I guess, mingled with philosophy. So I appreciated it, definitely. There were some profound things in here. Talk a little bit more about it. I share the bits in that video that hopefully won't take too long for me to edit. But yeah, I would say I recommend him, even if you're not a Christian in some regards too, and you are interested in existentialism, just because the other existentialist stuff, I don't know. I find it interesting. Like, Sartre does a really short essay that I would recommend as well. Existentialism is a humanism, and humanism I think is generally pretty good, although it's definitely gotten away from its Christian aspects. And that's, I think, in many regards, they lack grounding. They have no foundation. And that's what problem I have with like Camus and Sartre and stuff like that. And even guys that are kind of existentialist in some regards, even if kind of nihilistic, like Heidegger and Nietzsche. Worth reading, but they're depressing and sometimes just plain stupid. And I think he has a more eternal perspective, which I think always adds meaning. But also, again, I'm Christian, so I guess that helps with appreciating that more. So, either way, this is about 21 minutes long currently. Let me know if you guys think, if you've read any of these books, or if there are books that are similar, like maybe The Irish in the West or whatever, that isn't just a Marxist critique, because I would like to read something like that. That doesn't make me want to pull my hair out while I'm reading it. And I will see you guys soon, of course, but I'll also try to do this monthly, so let's see if I can read like 2 books in February, and see how that goes, and make a video. And it'll be a lot shorter than this one. But either way, appreciate it, guys. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.